Great. Well, thank you, everyone. Again, this is the Dead Run at Georgetown Pike Stream Restoration Project. This is the very first community meeting. And I'll just start that we have quite the team here with us. We have some folks from the Board of Supervisors office. We have Jane Edmondson here, and I don't think Ben is here, but Ben Wiles usually comes to these meetings. So Jane, I don't know if there's anything you want to say before we start.
Just I'm excited that we've gotten to this point, that we're at the Dead Run Stream Restoration Phase 3. The first two phases worked very well. They're beautifully done with a lot of community input. I look forward to getting the reactions to the citizens who are on. Supervisor Faust sends his greetings. He had another commitment. And Ben Wiles should be on this call. So he told me he was, so hopefully he is listening as well. But look forward to the presentation, which I've seen, but also the response and the reactions from the neighbors. Thank you, Vivian.
Right, thank you. All right, so just to introduce who we are. So we are within the Department of Public Works of Fairfax County. And there are 4 business areas, and we are specifically in the Stormwater Division, and I'm within the Stormwater Planning Division specifically. We do have a sister agency, the Maintenance and Stormwater Management Division. They handle a lot of our infrastructure, and we do a lot of the more capital projects that we see here. So that's very briefly who we are. There are a couple of us here on the team that are participating. So John is within my team, another engineer supporting me in this project. It is absolutely a team effort to get these projects moving along. So just a general agenda, I'll start with a vicinity map to get our bearings. I'll start talking about the goals of the project, program drivers, why we're doing this, what's influencing our work. And then I'll get into details of typical structures that we'll see, the existing conditions at the Dead Run at Georgetown Pike project area. We'll take a look at some of the completed projects done upstream within McLean Central Park. And then we'll do very briefly look at the proposed design. And again, I want to reiterate that we are very, very early in the design. We don't have anything concrete. You've probably seen a lot of field staff in the field the past few months, primarily in the winter and spring. So it was a lot of survey information gathering. And the past few months, our design consultant, Stantec, have been taking all that data and interpreting it. So there's not a lot as far as proposed design, but I can show what we have discovered with our information gathering and what constraints and opportunities that we are going to be working with. And afterwards, I'll be discussing the next steps and then have some resource information for you all. So just to get our bearings, the project limits, we're starting from Churchill Road, going through Dead Run, Stream Valley Park. So Park Authority is also very involved in our conversations and design since it is through their property. And then we'll be heading through some of the private properties here, through the Cloisters HOA. Georgetown Pike is here. There's a tributary behind the St. Luke Catholic Church. We'll be also including that within our scope of work. And then we are going a bit beyond Georgetown Pike. And there has been existing infrastructure improvements done here. And we are evaluating whether to keep it or to restore it. And I can go into detail about that later. And again, this is Churchill Road, but as Jane said, there were 2 projects that were done, known as segments 1 through 3. So segments 2 and 3 were completed last winter of 2019 through McLean Central Park. And then there was a segment 1 that was done on the Dominican Retreat property, finished in 2017. So this project that we're discussing here is a continuation of what was done upstream. And Stantec, our design consultant, designed both reaches. So we have a very consistent team, and I should say they're honorary McLean citizens. They've spent many, many hours and days here evaluating the stream conditions. So they're very, very well acquainted with the area. So a couple of our project goals. We are trying to stabilize our stream banks and our stream bed. There is a lot of evidence of erosion, and a big goal of ours is to prevent erosion. And right now we're looking at about 5,600 linear feet of restoration, give or take a couple of more. And just for reference, my last slide of the previous projects, this project is more than those two projects combined. So it's a very ambitious project, and it's very exciting that we can do all of this in one go. And a big goal of stabilizing is that we can reduce all that sediment that's being washed away from all that erosion. And when sediment enters water, it gets dissolved into primarily nitrogen and phosphorus, which are seen as pollutants. As part of it, we include certain structures, and we take into account of channel dimensions and alignments. And I have a lot of photos and graphics later to help explain what that means. Another one of our goals is to improve floodplain connectivity. And allowing water to escape out of the channel is a huge component of stream restoration. In natural, healthy stream valley, there's always a floodplain associated with streams where during large storm events, water can escape of its channel, reside on the floodplain, and infiltrate slowly, as opposed to being rushing downstream. And that's how you get shear stresses against the banks, and that's how you get erosion. So by doing so, we reduce the force of water going through, we reduce how much water is going through the channel, and use this natural floodplain that process nutrients and sediments naturally, which is how most normal, healthy stream restorations work.
Hi.
Hello, thank you for joining us.
Oh.
If you don't mind in muting just for the purpose of the presentation, that would be appreciated. Another project goal of ours is to improve habitat. So we do an extensive landscaping initiative. We have a landscape architect and arborist to help us put native vegetation in. There is a huge effort to get rid of invasive species that tend to suffocate native vegetation. We promote wetlands, and we get flow diversity, and we use those, any trees that we take down, we put back into the stream as in-stream structures. And I clicked a little early, but another project goal of ours is to protect infrastructure. So in this photo, and this is one of the existing photos, there is quite a lot of gravity lines and force main lines, and I'll go into detail, but there are sanitary lines left and right, across, up and down this whole stream valley. So that is also a goal of ours, is that we want to protect these lines. It's never a good thing when these things are damaged. And either we try to relocate the channel away, or we armor the channel so that our infrastructure does not get damaged. So our wastewater group is also a partner in this. They help advise us on what we can and can't do, if it's in poor condition, and sometimes we'll concurrently address wastewater pipe issues with our stream restoration projects. So it's kind of two birds with one stone. We can fix some infrastructure while we're already in there working on the stream. And a couple of our social goals is that we do plan on holding more of these community meetings as we continue through the design process, and keep that open dialogue and get feedback from the neighbors who will be affected and living with the stream restoration project. And we don't want to, surprise anyone when the project goes under construction. We want to make sure that we set realistic expectations as far as what, the stream valley is going to look like. We want to build partnerships. For example, to the right, we did a Eco Week at Churchill Elementary. It was coordinated with the McLean Citizen Association, where we took 6th grade classes on a walking tour through McLean Central Park to help educate about stream restoration. So we try to get involved. We want to showcase our project and make sure that anyone can learn from what we've done. I had mentioned the design team. It's definitely a team effort. We have Park Authority with us here. We have Stantec, our design consultant. There's a whole team within Stormwater Planning Division, including urban foresters, landscape architects, ecologists, engineers, technicians, and many other field staff to help put this together. We do have a construction department. They're the ones who take our designs and put it through construction. So there's a whole nother team that helps us with that aspect. Some of our stormwater program drivers. So why are we even doing any of this? And it's largely in response to the Clean Water Act of 1972. And as a result of that, there's been a couple of federal, state, and local regulations, ultimately to reduce pollutants in our waterways, specifically the Chesapeake Bay. And it's called total maximum daily loads. So it's that nitrogen and phosphorus that I had mentioned, but the goal is to try to limit how much of that is going to our bay. So I really like this photo that I found on NASA's website. So this is the entire Chesapeake Bay. This is the Susquehanna River. Baltimore is here, DC is here, and this is the Potomac River. So you can see that, and I assume this is after a rain event, but there's a lot of sediment and just murky water going to our bay. So a huge effort of ours is to try to help clean up our streams, prevent erosion, prevent sediment from falling in. Because when sediment falls in, we have all those nutrients, it creates algae blooms and dead zones, and it suffocates any aquatic life. So that's a big goal of ours. And these various federal, state, and local guidelines help us steer our stream restoration projects. And from Fairfax County standpoint, as far as what stormwater does, we have a commitment to maintaining our existing stormwater pipes. We have a couple state regulated dams that we watch out for. And as far as public safety goes, there are situations where there are flooding in some neighborhoods, and we're always constantly watching for any flooding, for any evacuations. For example, there is a threat of Hurricane Delta that might be heading this way, although probably not. But we are very, very aware of that, and that's one of the few things that stormwater planning does here in Fairfax County. So something I really want to show in this graphic is the evolution of channels and how they form and why this is an issue and why if we don't do anything, what's going to happen. So in ideal circumstance, there is a constant base flow. And then when it gets a little bit more water, a little bit more flow, it escapes to this bench, but it's relatively stable. There's really not much movement. But the moment that we know we add houses, we add roofs and roads, with a lot more water coming, this bench kind of disappears. We get this pit, and then we have this stage of incision where more flow gets trapped in, water can't escape, and we're just digging down deeper and deeper. And that's how you get that erosion happening, sediment is falling. Eventually, there will be maybe bedrock at the bottom, but it'll be eroding so much that will be widening, and that's the next stage. This stream starts to widen, trees start to fall in, and then you start to have a healing phase. The stream will heal, and it will create these benches again for water to escape out, but then it's at the cost of just widening so much. And in this case, we're within a park, we're within people's backyards, and if it widens, if it continues to widen, it just eats away at people's backyards. In very extreme cases, it can compromise people's homes. So not every stream goes through this, but this is very typical of what we've been seeing in Fairfax County. A couple of the structures that we use are called crossveins. They're large imbricated stones arranged in a way to help steer water. The flow of water is concentrated towards the middle with the arm sloping upwards. And the point is that during high flows, water is being pushed against the arm so that where it would have been just raw banks and raw earth, there's going to be boulders to kind of help break that up. It alleviates pressure away from the banks and acts as an energy dissipator. So this is something that's very common in a lot of our stream restorations. And I'll have a lot of photos later that although you can really see the boulders here, it gets hidden very well by the vegetation that we put in. Another series of structures that we put in are woody debris. So it's unfortunate that there is some tree loss involved with these projects because we do bring large machinery. It's a lot of earthwork. However, we always incorporate logs back into our design. So to the left is a root wad where fish can find a home in, and to the right is what we call a log riffle. So it's a neat pathway for water to kind of zigzag through, and where water kind of falls in, it pools right here, and it creates a little habitat for aquatic critters. So our ecologists really enjoy having these features because it's functional, but also it's functional as far as conveying water, but also for aquatic life. So a really unique feature of this project is that I had asked Stantec to help develop a story map to kind of go over all the photos of the existing project and the completed projects. So I will take us to the project website where you can click on the story map, and then I'll open to a new link and I'll take you through this. So if you go to Google and you just type Fairfax County Dead Run Georgetown Pike, it should be the very first link. If you click on it, it'll take you to the project website, which is a great resource. There's, in the future, I know I sent a lot of postcards out, and I sent individual meeting invites for this meeting, but you can also just join the meeting through the website. So that's a very convenient way. In the future, I will still send out postcards, but this is another way to join. And there are a lot of project background. You'll see some of the same photos I've been sharing. But what I really want to focus on is this See Dead Run at Georgetown Pike Stream Restoration story map. So if you click on this, it'll take you to this very interactive website. So I won't go too much into detail, but I do want to run this through you. So it'll start off with a vicinity map, very similar to what I showed you, in relation to the completed segments that we were done. And again, segment 1, which is a little bit further upstream across from Old Dominion Drive. And this map is neat in the sense that you can move it around. So, you know, if I live here and I can zoom in using these buttons to the right, I can see where my home is relative to the project. And this will be updated throughout the project. If I scroll down, there'll be a section on this particular project. Something I want to highlight is that we do have a very extensive tree inventory. So you may have seen little metal tags on all these trees with numbers. And the point of that is so that we can GPS locate these trees in relation to our project. And we only do for trees over 12 inches. So I understand there's plenty of trees out there, but we're only really focused on the ones that are large because there is a very extensive landscaping aspect. We plant thousands of trees back in. And as you scroll down, there will be photo points. So at this photo point, there are photos upstream and downstream. If you click on it, you can see the photo up close, and there's a caption about what we're seeing. You know, here the stream is narrow. We have some vertical banks. We have some exposed tree roots because we have that widening effect that I had talked about. And I won't go through all of that, but I'll go through, sorry, I went the wrong way. I'll go through some of them. Again, this is another example of that vertical bank. Water can't quite get out as intended, and that's one of the things we're trying to do is allow water to escape out for that relief and then come back in during normal base flow. So again, you can scroll down. There's plenty of photos. You can zoom out to kind of see where you are in relation to this photo. This photo here, I do want to point out that if you ever see these stakes with green paint on it, that is an indication of a wastewater pipe that's probably underneath. So as you can tell, there's a lot of wastewater pipes on either side of the stream. This is probably a crossing right here. So there's probably a pipe right under the stream. One of the things that we are taking into account. As you scroll, there's a couple more photo points, a couple more photos. So you can get an idea of what we're looking at without actually going out there. For example, this photo, the stream was probably narrow in between these trees, and then has widened so much that eventually all these trees are going to fall in if if nothing is done. If water is still pouring through and it can't escape out, eventually these trees will be undermined, and we've seen it all the times that big trees start coming down. Now we're heading behind the church. Again, we're seeing these vertical banks again, and it's very common what we're seeing. And over here, Georgetown Pike heading downstream. And there's a lot of pressure on these banks because there's so much water coming through under the bridge. And there was actually a previous project that was done. These are called gabion baskets, which is a very traditional civil engineering practice to help with bank erosion. Although we have found that these practices work, but we have seen a lot of them fail. They're more of a band-aid practice. So one of the things that we're considering is, should we leave it as is, because they seem in okay condition, but maybe we can't quite determine the longevity of it. And these tend to be band-aids, and they tend to fall apart after many years. So that's something we're taking into account. Is there a better way to protect this bank that isn't just it's rocks in a fence-like link structure? As you scroll down, we'll start to get into before and after photos of projects that were done just upstream or geographically south of our project area. So Dead Run 2, 3, and just to get our bearings again, we're starting, this is the library, this is the community center, and we're going up this way as far as the photo stations go. But it's nice to see that, this is the existing features pre-restoration, very similar to what I had just been showing you. And this is what it looks like during construction, which is not very pretty because nothing has grown in. But then if you give it 1 year after restoration, it really starts to green up. And this is a slightly outdated photo, and I'm sure now if you walk through it, it looks completely different. So as you scroll down, you'll get a couple more photos of before, during, after. I had talked about cross veins. This is another example of cross veins where water is being concentrated towards the middle, but during larger events, it'll bounce off the edges here and come back towards the middle. So again, I won't go through all of these, but they're very neat, very helpful. Dead Run segment 1 was done in 2017, so there's more photos here as far as after. So this is before photo, a photo of this home for reference. It was incredibly vertical here, and we lifted up the stream and we got connection out into the floodplain. This is immediately post-construction. This is a year after construction, after some growth. And then this photo was just taken in May, and it's 3 years after construction. To give you an idea of what a stream restoration looks like, that it's quite bare in the beginning, but over time, and we do monitor this for at least 3 years to make sure that we're getting the growth that we want, that the trees are healthy. There's a warranty period. So if trees don't survive within a year, we replace them. So we're very involved all the way past construction. And again, some more before and during photos, and I won't go too much into detail, but you're more than welcome to scroll through and take a look in detail of different features that we've implemented over the years. And I really like seeing these before and after photos because I think it really helps tell the story. And there's a section here about vegetation because we do have a very detailed landscaping plan, and we tailor our palette to the area. So an upland forest away from the channel, it's drier, so there's different trees and different shrubs that we plant. And then the wetlands areas are obviously more wet, so we add more plants that are more drought tolerant. And then we have our riparian forest, and that's a whole nother set of trees and shrubs and ground cover. So again, it's a pretty neat feature. It's on our website. So if you go to the website, click on the story map, and you can look at all those photos in detail. As far as the proposed design, as I mentioned, we're very much in the preliminary phase. And as I also said, we had a lot of field staff in the field taking survey data, taking soil samples, and all of it was for us to get an understanding of what we're working with. So at this point, we don't have a finalized stream alignment, which I know is what most people are very interested in. You know, where is this new stream in relation to my house? What will it look like? And at this point, I can't answer that yet. We do have another community meeting, likely in the spring. And at that point, we'll have a lot more detail about what the stream is going to be looking like. But until then, I can share with you the map that Stantec has as existing features. And I can share with you the type of constraints that we're looking at and the opportunities that we have within the stream valley. So let me exit out. And Stantec provided this very nice map for us. And I know it can be a little confusing to look at, but to get our bearings, this is Churchill Road, and this hatch here is the existing stream. So I'm not going to go through it from upstream to downstream. I'm going to keep it just to have this overall view, but I do want to highlight a few things. So again, this is Churchill Road. This is the Dead Run Stream Valley Park. This is a tributary to Ingleside Avenue. And the stream will flow downstream through the Cloisters HOA, eventually to Georgetown Pike right here. And again, this is the church, and this is a tributary that's following. But this path is all existing features and ultimately Georgetown Pike. And usually these are much messier looking with a lot of lines, but all these lines really are topographic lines. So when you see it very concentrated, that means it's very steep. I will turn that off for simplicity. So a few things that I really want to highlight is that we did a very thorough vegetation inventory. So I do want to explain what type of vegetation we're looking at. And I'll start with the forest communities. So I'll start with the healthiest and I'll go towards the not so healthy. So the healthiest trees that we found are uphill away from the stream valley. That was deemed the best quality, dominated by white oak, low invasive cover. We're trying very hard to stay away from this area, and I think we can manage that. The next healthiest is what we call, I'm sorry, I turned the wrong one on. This is the next healthiest, still upstream, away from the stream valley. And it's largely because there's been so much disturbance here as far as sanitary sewers go. So a lot of the older trees have been destroyed, and the ones that are left are the ones that have been uphill away from everything. And then we have this other forest community a little bit lower, and it was deemed to be of fair quality with a lot more invasive cover. So that was the forest community that was evaluated. Then we have the shrub community. So over here in these tan are areas of bamboo, which is considered very invasive. We try to get rid of these at all cost. We have this shrub community here where it looks like it was an old field. It's not being very well maintained. It has no canopy cover. And then the rest of the area is all turf. So there's not a lot of trees. There is not a lot of vegetation besides turf. And any trees that are there are maintained by the homeowner. They're not, forested trees or anything. So I just wanted to have this here. So we haven't, and this has helped drive our design as far as what areas we need to avoid, what areas are, good to wipe out, like these bamboo patches. So that's something that we're taking into account. And if you want us to go into detail, have to ask Stantec to speak about that at a later time because there's a lot that went into this. Another constraint that I really wanted to highlight, and I kept mentioning, is the wastewater lines. So all these red lines are gravity lines. And as you can see, they're down the stream valley, they're crisscrossing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think there's 8 crossings. And when they're crossing the stream like that, we have to be very, very careful to not go any deeper and puncture these lines. And on top of these gravity lines are force main lines. So there is a wastewater pump station here off of Georgetown Pike. And what happens is that all of these wastewater pipes and these gravity lines are going downhill to this pump station. This pump station shoots all that wastewater into force mains, which are under pressure going uphill to another pump station or manhole to regain that elevation loss and eventually to the wastewater facility. And again, as you can see, they're crisscrossing everywhere. And it's something that we really have to take into account to protect. And it's been quite the challenge to work around the wastewater constraints, because the last thing any of us wants to do is damage any of this. And then our stream is much, much dirtier than it ever began with. So with that said, an example of some alternative alignments that we had. This kind of example of what we try to do. We try to snake alignments through, and none of this is finalized, but this was kind of a preliminary practice for us. You know, we have these alignments. We assume that these will be the best for stream health, but then we look at it in relation to the sewer lines. We're seeing that, oh, we're crossing it 2 more times. Maybe this isn't a good idea after all. So that's part of the design process, that we're constantly trying different things, seeing what constraints there are. Something I wanted to mention as well, I won't go through the whole stream valley, but we do, there are significant tree loss, but we do highlight in red right here are the dead trees. So we do try to focus our tree removals to dead trees. But then there are poor trees that are identified, and those are also ones that we try to prioritize as far as removal goes. However, there are always some that have to go. And again, all of this is not finalized, but it is something that we are considering within our design process as far as tree removals go. So that is just like a sneak peek of the things that we look at. Again, I don't have anything finalized at this point. Over the next few months, Stantec has a lot of models that they have to look into as far as channel sizing and how to maneuver the stream through the valley. It's a very intense process, but at the next community meeting, I will definitely have something more concrete to share and something workable with. The next thing I wanted to show is access points, because that I think we can put into stone. So a couple of the access points for construction would be off of Churchill Road and Georgetown Pike. And oftentimes with these access roads, it's a predefined path. It's a 12-foot path, and I'll have some photos to share of what that will look like. And these are temporary. These are just to get our machines in, to get our equipment in. Part of the access roads is that we have a stockpile area, and we tend to focus these stockpile areas in areas where we don't have to do a lot of tree removal. For example, bamboo patches. We try to focus. I think there should be a stockpile area here. Yes. And this is an old field, using that as a stockpile area. So that's an example of some things that we evaluate during the design process. And this is an example of what a access road looks like. We have these timber mats, which are between 12 and 15 feet wide. We do this so that the ground isn't compacted when machines are going back and forth. We try to protect our trees with planks so that when equipment moves around, they don't nick the trees. So we put a lot of effort in trying to maintain existing features. And this is an example of a sanitary sewer manhole, which I think will be very common with this project, and protecting them and not damaging it. And this is a very normal picture of what active construction will look like. You have excavators, you have field crews, There's very regular meetings to make sure that what's being built is per plan. So this is a very real look of what active construction will look like. So as far as schedule goes, today is our very first meeting on the pre-design plan. We expect to have a preliminary design this spring, and then hoping to wrap everything up by the fall. And construction at this moment is slated for fiscal year 2024, which means it can start as early as July of 2023. And that's depending on future funding and if we have the means to do it, but that's where we are right now as far as the queue of projects go, because there's a lot of projects within the county that we're trying to get approved for construction. And until then, I absolutely will be the point of contact for this. If you have any questions throughout, you can ask me. There will be another community meeting this spring and likely next summer as well as we approach final design. Until then, you will likely see more field staff in the Stream Valley taking some more measurements and confirming what's on paper makes sense also in the field. This is my contact information, and this whole presentation will be online as well as the slides. So all this will be for your reference. And a couple of online resources, our website. The Northern Virginia Soil Water Conservation District is another agency that helps support us, mostly on a homeowner basis. So if you have something very specific on your property, the Water Conservation District is a very good resource. It can help you and advise you on any water issues you may have on your property. And a couple more links. This is the website that I had showed you. And that is the conclusion of my presentation. So the floor is open for anybody who has questions.
Vivian, I think people might be interested in what happens after final design and before you go to construction, because there is, I think, about a couple of year gap, and maybe you could explain that.
Yes, so it's quite a long process to get projects into construction. There's a whole bidding process, there's a whole paperwork process. So I think that's what you're asking, Jane, is just what happens in between design and construction. So sometimes, we'll have a queue of projects and some projects may not go forward. So sometimes there's a gap in funding where there's more funding available to move projects along that are design ready. So if that's the case, then it's very possible that we can move up the schedule as far as construction goes. So it kind of just depends on what's happening that year. And with design, anything can happen. There can always be some sort of tragic wastewater accident and it has to halt, what we do. And maybe we have to change our plans to reflect current conditions. So those are all possible.
Hi, Vivian. This is Karen Newman from the Cloisters Association, Homeowners Association. Hi. We have, as if other listeners don't know us, we have a significant portion of land that's privately owned on this plan. And I have a couple of questions for you, Vivian.
Yes, go ahead.
Let's see. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. One is I'm a little concerned, and I'm supposed that as time goes on, we'll be able to communicate with each other about the change in the stream that you mentioned, that you may have to reroute the stream. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes. So that is something that we are looking into, is that oftentimes these stream restorations require an alignment change to more effectively convey the water. So yes, that is something that we consider. We usually don't stray too far away, but we want to design it so that it can last, 100 years, that it's adequately protected, that water is being conveyed correctly. So yes, it's not it's not just within the stream itself that we're restoring. We do maneuver around.
Okay, because that's a little bit of a concern of ours, because we've had so much of our property. We own more than 7 acres along the stream bed. And we've had so much of our property already taken over by the county for various projects, a lot of it being the sewage system. So
Right.
that may be a little bit of a concern to us. And the other thing is the stockpiling areas
Yes.
look pretty significant behind one of my neighbors' houses.
Yes.
Actually, two of my neighbors. One is the one after the access off of Georgetown Pike. That's in that field there. If you're facing the stream with your back to Georgetown Pike, there are
Probably this
houses
one.
both on the right and on the left that will significantly be impacted by that. And we need to let them know as soon as possible that that's going to occur.
Yes. So stockpile areas are pretty important. The larger the area that we have, the faster the project can be done, because there's a lot of materials that have to be hauled into the site. There's a lot of
Sure.
rocks, there's, a lot of machinery. And we found that when we limit these stockpile areas, it's significantly slower because they just don't have as much material on hand to work with.
Okay. It's just that I think in our case, because those are extremely large and they will have and they are on private property, both
Yes.
the cloisters as well as the individual homeowners' property, it looks like from the map. I think we may have to have a conversation with those particular homeowners so they are aware of
Yes.
what is going to happen, because this is going to be a long project and, their whole backyard's going to be torn up basically.
So
Yes.
one thing I just wanted to point out is I'm Sujan. I help Vivian on the project.
Okay.
That we're not going away from the easement that we have. So we're staying within the easement. There is something that is beyond the easements that we already have. So if we go beyond that, then that becomes a lot of concern. But I don't think we're going to go beyond the limit of the easements that we already have in there.
Right. But that said, let me, for instance, I'm looking at this map that you have in the large construction project the large stacking or whatever you call it area that is between the Dead Run to Georgetown Pike area and then the Dead Run stream towards St. Luke's. It is that easement is actually partially on private property that's not owned by the homeowners association. So that particular plot of land, we need to make sure we talk to the homeowners about it.
Yeah, that certainly will be done when we, we'll have a little bit of concrete design, and then we're ready to talk.
Yeah, because in particular, there's one homeowner on Priory Place whose property goes all the way across the stream to Georgetown Pike.
Right. I think it's probably one of these two.
That one. So we really need to get them engaged in this because they're going to be significantly impacted.
Yes. And if you have a contact information, I would gladly appreciate it.
Sure. I can get that to you privately.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
That would help.
And I will note that any of these stockpile areas, we do restore it afterwards. So we don't leave it, we don't leave it a dirty
well,
area or anything.
Let me just tell you a story, because when the easement was when the Fairfax County requested and we allowed an additional easement for the sewage lines that are now in place that are under the floodplain, they assured us that it was going to be restored, and we've had the worst problem down there. It's never been restored properly, and we kept contacting them, and we finally just gave up because the damage that was done, they just left it finally, and we were stuck with it. There are ditches down there, and it's not, anyway, that's a whole nother story. But so I will tell you ahead of time, the older homeowners will be very suspect when you tell us they're going to be restoring this property.
And
Karen,
yeah,
that's why Supervisor House wanted me to be on this call. If there are any problems, first of all, I know Vivian will take good care of you because we've done a number of stream project restoration that she's been the manager, but we're here too, Ben Wiles, myself. If there are any problems and you don't feel you're getting satisfaction, you know how to reach us.
Okay, thank you, Jane. And the last question I have is that the map you showed, we have some homeowners who are particularly interested in the vegetation that will be planted. And so they will be very involved once we get to that stage. But they may want to look at that map that you showed. I'm guessing those are the tagged trees, and they say whether they're strong trees or weak trees.
We do have an inventory of the tree health and quality. Yes.
And is that the map you showed earlier where they had some of them were, I don't know, on my computer, some of them were X'd and some of them were orange.
Yes.
And
yeah.
is that
yes.
map available? So if some of my homeowners would like to, because there are some who are very involved in what's being planted around the neighborhood.
Yes.
That map,
Yes, those are existing trees, but we
Yes.
will eventually have a new landscaping plan of all the different trees we plan on planting, all the different seeds and shrubs. So I could definitely share all of that. I don't have the landscaping plan at the moment prepared for this because we're so early, but eventually we will have that.
But we have a couple of neighbors who have traditionally been very involved with our homeowners association as to what gets planted down there. So I'm sure they'll be interested. So I will give you their names as well.
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay, great. Thanks for your help. I appreciate it.
No problem. And I see a question from Monica. If this work typically result in revised property RPA setbacks, and that is something that we don't usually do, and I don't think we've historically done it on at least any of the projects that we've done. So no, we're not anticipating revised RPA setbacks.
Hi, Vivian. This is Christos Betios. We own property on Dead Run. First, let me congratulate you. This is an amazing presentation. Great job putting together. And also, thank you again. Congratulations for completing the previous phase. We walk that 5 times a week, so it's just gorgeous. You've done a great job. One of suggestions, or maybe a consideration, and it sounds like this doesn't fall within your scope, but it would be great if you guys can consider accessing the walkway and the path from that opening on Dead Run. I think around 1099 right there. Yeah, you got it. It's currently, not a way to cross. I think, you having going to Cooper and Langley, so many kids, I think, would consider even walking to Langley if there was an access point from there, because it's a great walkway. So I don't know if it falls within your scope, but it would be nice to consider that as well.
Yeah, so that is actually something we did talk about with Park Authority because it is on their property. So this is a map that I just pulled up of the stream network within the area. It in red are sidewalks. So right now we do have a trail going through Dead Run Stream Valley, and I think that's what you're talking about. Is that this trail that goes to Ingleside, but it doesn't quite connect to Dead Run Drive. So we did consider some sort of bridge crossing across. The problem is that it gets very expensive to construct these crossings, and Park Authority doesn't have funds at the moment to fund something like that at the moment. Not saying that that won't be the case in the future. And typically our stormwater funds needs to be reserved for stormwater water quality projects. So it gets a little difficult as far as how funding allocation works. I don't think it's totally written off the table, but something that Park Authority developed was this map showing that there are many different routes to get to and from Georgetown Pike to Churchill Road. I know Langley's over here, Churchill Elementary. There's a whole new network. And I think these sidewalks there was a new sidewalk created along Ingleside Avenue and I can't remember what this road is, but these are relatively new sidewalks.
I think it's Barron.
Yes, I think Barron turns this way. Douglas Drive.
All right.
Thank you.
Vivian, Vivian, the the sidewalk that was put in was it was a runoff off of the little path that came off of Churchill Road to Ingleside.
Right.
And then when they came to the Cloisters Homeowners Association and requested permission to run a path all the way through our property, the entire association denied that. And at our suggestion, they said, instead of spending thousands and $500,000 running a path through private property, why don't you just put 50 feet of sidewalk on Ingleside, which is Ingleside/Barron,
Right.
and it takes you right to Douglas. And so that's what they ended up doing, and it works great. Everybody uses it.
Okay, good. Okay, that's good to know the history, because we did look at what would it look like for us to have a trail up through here, but we found it was just, there's no easements, and I know historically Cloisters didn't really want a trail going through their property, which we respect. So that will not come into fruition. And I do think this new sidewalk that was created here has helped a lot with the pedestrian traffic. I'm looking through the chat right now, and Craig and Kelly asked what an RPA setback is. And Fairfax County has, let's see. You'll see here that there is an RPA line. And the RPA line was historically created as a setback from the stream. I forget what the length is, but that is what an RPA setback is. And that was, I'm not quite sure of the entire history of that, but we do have it mapped out here.
It's 100 feet on each side of the stream.
Thank you, Sajan. 100 feet on each side. And I think we have a hand up from John.
Hello, this is actually Julia, and I'm with my dad. We live on Carper Street, and I was wondering if you expect this project to change. I was wondering if you expect this project to impact the floodplain easements, and if you have any maps or plans of the expected updated easements. And I would also like to say thank you for your presentation, and we are excited about this project.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
About how it might affect the easements close to our backyard.
So this is a GIS map that I have here. Let me let it load really quickly. So again, this is Churchill Road. This is Dead Run Valley Park. It's very slowly loading. Okay, so in blue is our floodplain easement, and green is a conservation easement. So this is the easement that we're working within, and we will not be working outside of this easement. So that's what it looks like right now. And on Carper Street, this existing easement will remain the same. We do not plan on getting any additional land for this project. We are solely working within it.
I guess my question is, do you expect the improvements of the stream to impact the floodplain area?
So we look at the floodplain from a 100-year perspective. That's generally what this floodplain line is for a storm that occurs every 100 years, which is a 1% chance a year. What will the limits be? So we do a very thorough floodplain analysis using different type of models, and it's a very intricate process, but we do make sure that we do not increase the 100-year flood line outside of the easement. Sometimes we'll move it up and down within the easement. Sometimes it's by a little bit, sometimes by a lot. But at this point, it's hard to say what it will look like, but it is something that we very closely look into, because we cannot exceed outside of the easement as far as the 100-year floodplain goes.
Okay, thank you.
John Smith had some question. He raised his hand.
Okay, I think he lowered his hand.
Okay.
Yes, that was I am with John.
Oh, okay. You did
We are
mention that.
Thank you.
Thank you. There was a question from Craig and Kelly about the other sections of Dead Run, specifically the section through the park between Cooper Middle School and Churchill Elementary School. So let me get my bearings on that. But right now, the scope of work is what I have been discussing. So there is a larger management plan, and I actually have a slide as backup for that. But there is a whole watershed management plan within the Dead Run watershed. So there's different projects, and I don't know what you're specifically talking about. Like there's Cooper Middle School, there's Churchill, and that's probably something we can look at. There's a whole set of projects that we can do, and we've been prioritizing what projects that are done at a certain time. So right now we're focused on this one, but ultimately there is an overarching plan on water quality improvements within the Dead Run watershed. And maybe at a later date, you can let me know which specific section you're talking about. Tim, I can absolutely give you the Park Authority contact. Oh, I'm sorry. I see a hand raised by Craig and Kelly.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. I was going to try and point out exactly what area we were referring to. If you go back to the map you were looking at earlier, that showed the floodplain.
Yes. Let's see. Is it this section right here? This is the Cooper Middle School. This is Churchill.
Right. So yes. So as you follow that down, right there where your arrow is, right in there. So my question is, the work that's being done, it runs around the perimeter of this whole area, and has any analysis been done as to how that will impact other sections, this one in particular?
I don't think we have walked this one. And we do, like I mentioned, we do have this overarching watershed plan. But in addition to that, every fall, we do what we call a stream scoping exercise, where we take candidate streams, and as a team, there's many different teams. We go out, we evaluate if it's a good project. So this is a section that I can absolutely ask to evaluate, so we can kind of see where it falls in our queue of design projects, because there's many different streams. There's thousands of miles of streams within Fairfax County. So right now, our focus is this one continual stretch of Dead Run, but I wouldn't say it's off the charts to look at this. I don't think it would be part of this project specifically, because we're pretty set budget-wise on this scope that I've talked about. But I think in the future, we can look at this stretch within Churchill Road Park.
Well, we would encourage that and would love to be part of that conversation.
Sure. Thank you.
That's a good question.
Okay, I think I've addressed the questions that I see in the chat.
Monica had a question. She's saying also strict constraints. Was there any question related to that? Okay.
Okay. All right. If that's the case, and there are no more questions, then I just want to thank everyone for joining us. Again, you'll be hearing back from me in the future about a follow-up meeting in the spring. Please, if you get the chance to visit our website, there's a lot of really good information there. And yes, and again, this will be recorded and this will be here. So if your neighbors miss the meeting, they're welcome to join the hour-long meeting again with us. All right. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, Vivian. Great job.
Thank you.
Vivian.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Vivian. It's great.
Great.
Vivian.
Awesome.
Give it a thumbs up.
Vivian, you did a great job.
Thank you, Assad.
I'm sorry I was a little bit late.
Oh, no, that's totally okay. I'm trying to, all right, I'm downloading the attendance sheet so I know hopefully who came. And thank you, George. I see you there. Thanks for your support.
No, you did awesome. That was a great presentation, and I was typing down notes just as you were going through the Q&A, so I'm just going to shoot those over to you.
Great, thank you. Thank you for getting that story map through. I think Kinsey will feel proud of it. I really liked it. I thought it helped tell the story very well. And the Palmer map was also very helpful. I think being able to turn on and off all the layers was really nice. Thank you, Chris. I see you there too.
Yeah, Puri was there too earlier.
Yeah, we'll pass it along, and yeah, I think Kinsey had a great time putting it together. I know she still has some more work to do on it, but yeah, we will be ready to just continue with it when we're get back together.
Yes, and I will follow up on that. But otherwise, I think this went well. Thank you, Jane, for sticking around. I know historically there's been a lot at this project or this whole stretch. So I'm glad that I think we had a pretty good turnout. I just downloaded the attendance list and it looks like we had like 40 people, just pretty good for a online meeting.
Vivian, this is Mike Sigler. I think I'm on your list as just Mike.
Yes.
I'm at 1101. I own the property at 1101 Dead Run Drive, but I don't live there. And I don't know where you get your contact sheet. But I would appreciate getting added to this because there's a lot of damage in that area.
Yes, absolutely. And if you could, could you give me your email address? I could make sure that I can include you in any correspondence.
Sure. Yeah.
This would also come on the attendance list also.
Okay. Awesome.
I think I sent you a note and you sent me one back, but here I'll send it to you again.
Okay. Yes, I think we have talked before. So I did think your name was familiar. And in that case, I already have your contact information.
Yeah. So I'd appreciate you keeping us in the loop, and if there's anything we can do, I would very much appreciate it because I've actually had on my list for a while now to contact you all to see if anything could be done. So I'm very pleased to see that they're looking at this project.
Great. I'm very happy to hear that. It's good to get support because oftentimes these projects can be challenging, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I can imagine there can be quite a bit of resistance.
Yes.
But I think it's extremely important. I mean, the watershed in the area has been impacted so dramatically by the development and without mitigation and quite frankly, the uncontrolled development along the stream bed for since I was a kid out there, I think has caused a lot of damage.
Yes, I had a lot of technical slides ready in case anyone asks, but it's definitely, this conversation can go on for such a long time about how the stream is getting to where it is now. And we can talk about development and all the tear downs and huge houses being built, and that's a whole nother
whole
But
other
yes.
bag.
yeah
But anyway.
yeah and the stream restoration is one way to help with everything.
Yeah. Well, anyway, again, thank you. You did a very nice job. I thought the presentation was very well done, and I look forward to working with you on the project.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, take care. Have a good
Okay.
evening, y'all.
Thanks, you too. All right, with that, I think I will sign off. Thank you for the team, the design team, for sticking around. Definitely appreciate it.
Thanks,
So,
Vivian. It's
thanks.
good to
Yeah,
Have a
welcome.
good
Thanks,
evening.
Vivian.
Have a
Bye.
good evening, Vivian.
Thank you.
Good night, Vivian.
Good night.